Hi, everyone. My name is Cathy Lindsey, and I work under Astrology's Evolutionary Astrology. Right now, we are living through some very, very powerful times in history. And as I was putting this talk together, I started, kind of putting things together, of course, a little while ago. And since then, it's like total chaos and total tear down, a little bit of fear, etc., is going on in the world. And so the last few days, I keep kind of changing and keep adding some things so that it's a little more current. And I'm open to questions because wherever you want me to go at this particular moment in history, I am really willing to try to answer questions. I've been referring to the years of 2019 and 2020 as years of teardown. And of course, not really knowing what that was going to be like, but knowing the signatures of this huge stellium in Capricorn of Mars and Jupiter and Pluto and Saturn, etc. And what this will mean. Of course, it means transformation. It means changing and transformation of structures, with Saturn, Jupiter coming in and giving it a little boost of higher energies, but also Jupiter can expand the current energies. About the first part of March, Mars started entering the picture and started affecting this stellium. And this stellium shows in the chart of the equinox. And when Mars started to come in and started to march in, I started thinking, okay, Mars is going to be triggering this, and Mars is going to be activating the stellium that is present at the spring equinox. And I want to point out that at the spring equinox, that it is as the sun enters Eris and the equinox happens, which is like at 10:50 something this evening in Central Daylight Time in America. You can adjust your time. When you see that stellium down there in the second house, that is like the backdrop of the whole year. Because the spring equinox, when the sun enters Aries, is the beginning of the astrological new year. And so this whole chart, which is all kind of on one side, basically, it is the backdrop of this whole year coming up. In the second house, the stellium in the second house, that is the house of finances, how you put food on the table and a roof over your head, etc. So it's really showing throughout the world right now. Like I said, there's a lot of chaos, there's a lot of changes going on. When Mars entered the picture, the first part of March, got in the wide orb of Jupiter, Pluto, Saturn, things started happening. Mars is an activator, and Mars, of course, is our warrior energy, and it's our action energy, and it can be a little volatile or it can be a little argumentative. On the high side, it's like that pioneer energy. Okay, let's get into something new. Let's try something new. Let's get something going. As I've been watching Mars come into this picture and then looking at the spring equinox chart, which again will be the backdrop for the whole year, I realized that Mars was going to be a very, very powerful activator. I had kind of thought of, well, maybe some of the main activations and kind of the crisis kind of energy that this would present, that would pull our whole world together, pull humanity together. In my own mind at that particular time, I thought, well, maybe we'll have an invasion from outer space, a catastrophic event. I didn't realize it was going to be a virus that was going to cause all the chaos and cause the catastrophic events happening. And very interesting how that has played out. And it's a world event. It's all over the world. The virus thing and people having to go inward and go in their houses and stay out of crowds, etc. And it is going on all over. Um, it brings in some fear also. And of course, as astrologers, we're trying not to go into that fear part. We know that to go into the higher energies of Saturn and Capricorn, because that Saturn can bring in a little bit of fear and a little bit of depression, especially at the last degrees of Capricorn. The higher end of Capricorn is the wisdom of the elders and the ability to bring the very high spiritual, into intuition, etc., into the mix and bring it in and actually ground it into reality. This is a very, very trying time, but it's also bringing about some major changes that we're kind of seeing in the world, and I'll talk to about that in just a minute. But the big things happening and the big concentration of energy, it's very kind of unsettling and kind of what do I want to say, intense. And it's going to be that way for the next few weeks as Mars continues to go over all these planets. And I think it's the 30th. I wrote it down here. On Monday, the 23rd, Mars comes into contact with Pluto. So it's a very intense period of time that we're in. And when I look at this, it's in the second house. And the second house is how we put food on the table and a roof over your head. And of course, that's being all activated in a way that is uncomfortable for many people. People have lost their jobs temporarily, hopefully temporarily. Right now they can't work and they're being encouraged to stay home. Some are being quarantined. I can't say the word anyway. And quarantined. And so money, how do you put food on the table and a roof over your head, is really up in the air for a lot of people. And you can see this fear kind of, and you can see this uneasiness all around you. And again, stay out of the fear part of it, because there is a good ending, that will come about. We just have to get through this period right here. And of course, a lot of it has to do with the government. It's in Capricorn. The government's trying to help out wherever you're at in the world. When I look at this Equinox chart, one of the things that I noticed right away, as Saturn's going to be moving into Aquarius, is that at the Equinox chart, the moon is in Aquarius. And so that's our moon energy. That's our nurturing energy, our caring mother energy. And it's in Aquarius, which is about the community. It's about the tribe, the community. It's about humanity. And right now, that nurturing mother energy is so important for the whole community. And it will be throughout the whole year coming up. But that moon being in Aquarius, conjunct Eris, those are both two mother energies. Those are both two healing energies, nurturing energies for the whole world and for humanity. And of course, our communities within our own individual communities coming up. And so I thought it's kind of phenomenal how this is showing up in the Equinox chart, which is the background for the whole year. And the moon in Aquarius and Eris in Aquarius are in the third house of communication. Communicating, how can we do this? How can we mother? How can we nurture? I see that Mercury is also in there in that third house in Pisces, which Mercury rules that house anyway. So a big emphasis on communicating to the community, but in the Piscean energy, which is very intuitive and it's very unconditional love and high creativity, etc. So they're working together this way. And I wanted to point out that part of this equinox chart is that North Node in Cancer. Of course, South Node is in Capricorn, which is, bringing up all this old stuff we didn't deal with in the past, but and past lives, past centuries, etc. And I look at that North Node, which is in Cancer, which again is ruled by the Moon, which is community healing, not community, healing the community, but healing the mother energy, the big nurturer, the one that does the chicken soup for everybody in the community, the one that kind of takes care of and watches out for. So there's kind of a synchronicity there, or an interesting movement of that moon in the equinox chart being in Aquarius, nurturing the whole community, and that moon ruling the North Node, which is where we are heading as humanity, and heading in that direction at the North Node. So it's I can see it kind of playing out here. When I adjusted a little bit to all the current things going on in the world right now, it's very interesting how we are nurturing each other. We are nurturing our neighborhoods, our tribes, our communities right now, as we all are having to stay in our homes and social distancing and not going out in public as much. All major events, like over 10 people have been canceled. And so what's happening is that people are learning to be in a home or be in an area with family or with close friends, or like with the neighbors, and not being able to go out and overly keep ourselves busy socially, or sitting on our iPads or our phone all the time, but actually getting to where we have to actually communicate and talk to our family and our friends, etc., because we're having to be in that same place. And this is new for a lot of people, but a lot of people that I've been talking to actually like this. They like this being able to be close. And it's also the North Node in the 8th house, which is about the earth. And so trying to stay connected to the earth, and connected to family, and connected to neighbors, and connected to people, and having to communicate, and going out in nature and sharing nature, maybe 6 feet apart or whatever, but being able to do that without having to go to work and doing the hustle and bustle and the busy, and the well, I'll get on the computer, I'll get on the iPad, etc. It's like everything has shifted right now. And again, people are kind of enjoying this. And people are posting pictures, I don't know if you've seen them, but I've seen them on my Facebook, etc., of nature, of flowers beginning to bud and poke up, because here in the Northern Hemisphere, where it said the spring is beginning, pictures of animals outside. It's just, it is very symbolic of this equinox chart. And when you look at that North Node in Cancer up there in the 8th house, which is the house of Earth spirituality, Scorpio, that's very, very much where we're supposed to be heading. And when I see also that the nodes are being squared by Chiron, which is conjunct the equinox sun, in the sign of Eris, let's start something new. Let's be the pioneer in this area again. There's that wound that needs to be healed. And that wound, that Chiron wound in Eris, but it's in the 5th house. In the 5th house, the house of fun, but it's the house of children. It's the house of the child within. And it's kind of fun, and it's kind of the child within. But what did you do when you were a child outside? you know, or in the house. You used your imagination. Fifth house is also the house of creativity. So you used your imagination, and you made up your own stories, etc. And I used to do that when I was young, you know, in the house or outside. But it's also, you know, being creative, playing games. That's also part of the fifth house. We've kind of lost that over these last several years. Too much being busy, too much being watching TV or being, you know, on your phones or you know, whatever, and people not even knowing really who their neighbors are, and suddenly discovering that, hey, my neighbor plays the piano and I didn't even know it. This square to the nodes is really activating that Cancer North Node in that 8th house, which, when we look at the big picture of humanity and the earth right now, that's where we're supposed to be headed. And this crisis, quote unquote, that's happening all over the world, is part of that. It's like the universe has gotten very serious. And then the universe is thinking, we only have so much time left, which is quick for the universe. I know, a couple years for us as far as when Pluto moves into Aquarius, but the other planets are moving into Aquarius now, giving us that energy. But and Saturn right now is feeling the Aquarian energy at 29 cap. But it's like the universe is saying, okay, we need to get back in touch with the earth. We need to get back in touch with our neighbors. We need to get back in touch with the family. We need to get back in touch with our friends. And so one way that's happening is through the crisis of this virus, and people being laid off, people, you know, losing their jobs for the moment, as, you know, restaurants have had to close, and you can, you know, do pickup, but you can't gather, only in your homes or in your neighborhoods. You can't be in big gatherings anywhere. And so the universe through, so if you look at it that way, the high end of this crisis is that we're coming back into community, which is Aquarius. Aquarius is about the tribe, about the community, about humanity. The Aquarian moon in this equinox chart, Saturn almost in Aquarius, feeling that Aquarian energy in this chart. So that's where our future is heading at this moment. This is what the transits and the chart is saying. And, you know, the gathering again in community, when you look at where the equinox sun is, the Aries point, you know, the beginning of the backdrop for the whole year, it's in the house of home, family, and clan. All of this is all kind of going back to the same message. And when you talk to or see kind of what's happening all over the world, you know, when you look at Venice, okay, because people are kind of quarantined in their own areas and they're not out and about and all the hustle and bustle, the canals, the waters are becoming clearer. They can see the fish in it. They're becoming clearer. Nature, our earth, is kind of excited about this. Without all the people around, you know, trashing and throwing trash, etc., out in the parks or out on the walking trails, etc., you know, and actually looking at the new blooms coming up here in the, you know, the northern hemisphere, etc., and getting back in touch with nature. That's kind of a wonderful sight that we're seeing, you know, happening. People are enjoying the earth. And southern hemisphere, you're probably, I don't know if you're starting to see, you know, leaves changing or whatever. It's the same type of thing. Enjoying the beauty of the earth, actually taking time to look at it, walk in it. Same with your home. You know, home, family, and clan. That's where the sun is. Of course, we have Neptune in that fourth house also, bringing in the spirituality of it. The earth spirituality, and you know, the very high spirituality, but also the channeled creativity. And the square to the nodes, Chiron, that we're trying to heal is about creativity. How do we get to that north node in that fifth house? Through creativity, through imagination. With the Neptune and Pisces in the fourth house there, that ability, sharing the house with the Equinox sun, that ability to do that, to bring in the creativity, the high channeled creativity of Pisces, and the creativity of the fifth house. So these times are very transformative. It's like we're experiencing, you know, radical transformations everywhere, and accelerated evolution, you might say, and it can be a little scary, but you know, you trust in the high spiritual. It's showing in the chart. There's a reason this is happening. The high end of what is happening is people getting back in touch with humanity, people getting in touch with their community, people getting in touch with the earth, people taking time to play games and talk to people face to face, or maybe, you know, 3-6 feet away right now, but you know, talking to people, going out with and walking the earth, etc. You know, it's a big concentrated energy, and it's going to be intense for a couple of weeks. But if you look at that big picture part, which is Aquarius, being able to see that big picture, you know, and being able to wrap your mind around some ideas that are kind of pioneering ideas out there in the future, kind of. And how we can use that and creatively use that to develop this new, to keep the nurturing and the community and the family, and you know, to keep that and the nurturing of the earth, and to keep that in focus. And the nodes change, they do change, you know, in May. And I think that's why this is happening right now, because the universe is very serious about that north node and the mother energy and the nurturing of humanity and the nurturing of the earth, and making it very, very strong right now. And you know, when that north node goes into Gemini, it's that Gemini is still a child kind of energy. It's a youthful kind of energy. It's you know, a lot of talking and communication, which the Equinox has a concentration in the third house, but of communication. But we're being asked to go slow. We're being asked to slow down. We're being asked to go inward, to access some stillness. And the universe is getting really serious. And so it's really time to get out of the fear, and to get out of the, oh my God, you know, what is happening and how am I going to survive, which a lot of people are in. And, you know, and pushing that fear energy out, and surrounding that fear energy with you know, say a bubble of pink light or white light, but also being able to see what this is really kind of meaning right now. The connection with humanity, the connection with your tribe, the connection with humanity, the nurturing of each other, the kind of unconditional love, the enjoyment of it, you know, making your own time to do something and not be so scheduled. And I know many of us are guilty of this, including myself, you know, to the point where at times I almost feel guilty if I have an hour I can actually relax. It's like I need to be doing something. The universe is serious here. You need to relax. You need to go inward. Of course, when you go inward, you kind of meditate. But you need to connect with humans, and you need to connect with the earth. And there's a whole other world out there besides total electronic and total busyness. Another thing that surprised me but made me smile was that in Italy right now, it's very hardly hit, as we all know, but people are singing to one another. They're singing. I mean, this doesn't happen. It happens now. And, you know, that's part of that Mercury in Pisces at this equinox chart. You know, the singing and of the Piscean energy, you know, the high creativity of our musicians, etc., and to communicate and to use that to connect with people. Not always the electronics, but what about music? What about gatherings? And they can be small gatherings. They don't have to be these huge ones all the time. And so we're being taught that. We're being shown that this is a part that we have kind of put on the back shelf that we need to bring out. And so even in China, they said that the skies are clearer because everyone hasn't been outside. They can actually see the blue sky. These are things that I've noticed, and and there again, that's that not only people connecting with each other and we reaching out to help each other, etc., but also the earth and how the earth is responding back to being taken care of in a different way and being nurtured in a different way. So when you look at that stallion in Capricorn, everything is right on top of each other. Yes, it can be volatile, and yes, it can be scary. And Jupiter's a kind of a fun energy, but it's also expansive. And right now, it's kind of expanding those energies. We have to help others, and including ourselves, to stay out of the fear part and to notice the big picture of where this can lead us, and how we have to use our creativity, which is the Chiron square the nodes, and we have to use that kind of childlike energy, and how we need to focus on family and community, humanity, and etc. Again, Mars being the trigger coming in, Mars marching over everything just instigates it more and brings in more energy and can bring in some angst energy. Again, we have to concentrate on the higher energies. Mars that rules the equinox sun and rules the equinox today, etc., also is very prominent in the chart of Saturn entering. Yeah, Saturn entering Aquarius. Is also very prominent. Mars very prominent at that time, also sitting there actually conjunct Jupiter and 1 degree away from Pluto. And Pluto and Mars sitting together can be a bit volatile. We try to keep it out of the volatile part. That is also, and you bring in Pallas Athene, and she's the female warrior. So we got the male warrior, Mars, and we got the female warrior going on in that chart of the equinox, and also of Saturn entering the ingress into Aquarius. Those planets, Pallas Athene, Jupiter, Mars, and Pluto, and Aquarius, and Saturn and Aquarius, excuse me, because it's just at 0, 0. It's still in the orb of these 3 planets, at this time. We got to remember that all of those are squaring Eris. And Eris, again, is the one that causes the chaos and the discord and that wild card energy, and remembering that she started the Trojan War and brings in a little jealousy, etc. So in the chart of the equinox and in the chart of Saturn moving into Aquarius, they're all squaring Eris. They're all in the orb of squaring Eris. And so that adds even more chaos and more disruptions and more wild card energy. But again, it's in the house, the fifth house of creativity. And remember, out of chaos comes creativity. Your creativity gets sparked and gets active when you're in a state of chaos or there's chaos around you. So as Saturn moves into Aquarius, we can think about things like excuse me. We can think about things like Aquarius being the energy of technology, and Aquarius is about justice. It's about community. It's about humanity, our tribe. Aquarius, is about kind of collective energy, the collective and its energy. Aquarius is like the mad scientist of the zodiac. I've heard that phrase before, and it can be that way. And Einstein even was an Aquarius. But the future thinkers, the ability to wrap your mind around quantum physics or astrology, the rules of astrology, being able to learn and wrap your mind around ideas that people can't wrap their mind around. Saturn and of course Uranus both, were rulers of Aquarius. Saturn being the traditional one, Uranus being the newer one, and both of them in Aquarius. So Saturn is kind of at home in Aquarius somewhat. It gets along better in Aquarius than it does a lot of the other signs. It's kind of like with Saturn being co-ruler of Aquarius, Saturn being kind of the taskmaster. It almost feels like nothing is impossible in 2020 with Saturn moving into Aquarius. A lot of the rules and the structures of how our tribes run, how our community runs, how humanity runs all over the earth will be up for some changes. Saturn being the structure keeper, but also being in Aquarius. And so, very interesting how that works. Again, though, Mars is right there activating, but Uranus being future thinkers. And one of the things with Mars is the pioneer, they can work together. We have to, some of the rules will be changed, etc. We have to figure out how we're going to share this planet now. With this crisis of everybody being individuals, suddenly now people are helping each other, and countries are starting to kind of help each other or be aware of what's going on. And so one of the things with Saturn moving into Aquarius is, how are we going to share this planet now? How are we going to share within our communities? A focus on humanity, focus on the people, a focus on the earth. Last time Saturn was in Aquarius, we had the Madrid conferences, which were co-sponsored by the US and the Soviet Union. We also did the NAFTA deal. There's a lot of things going on when Saturn moved into Aquarius. One thing that was interesting is that it's kind of like the internet, came about, and it kind of moved to the Internet of Things, how we operate, and all of a sudden it's kind of almost controlling everybody. We love the progress the internet has brought. That's why we can do this meeting. But it's like we're looking at a new reality too. Of you need to take time to be with your community. You need to take time to be with people in your neighborhood. You need to take time to be with your family, and you need to take time to be with the earth. And then the new things technology-wise that we have now, and we'll be getting some more of them with Saturn moving into Aquarius, we need to balance them. We need to get used to being within ourselves, being within our families, and being within our little communities, and sharing it with the earth. In 1962, Saturn was in Aquarius, and the Jetsons premiered. If any of you remember the Jetsons, I do as a child or young teenager. I was about 12, 13 when the Jetsons appeared. Well, now, of course, most of the things that the Jetsons were promoting, very futuristic Aquarius, we now have as normal things in our lives. So very interesting when you look back at some of the things that happened last time and some of the times that Saturn has been in Aquarius. One thing that I noticed about Saturn in Aquarius back, it reconfigures relationships also. When Saturn was in Aquarius in the 60s, etc., I remember, excuse me, I was kind of an old hippie, but I remember how difficult it was for my mother with the changes and the fact that couples were living together before they got married. That was a really big deal back then. How do you even address an envelope? This was a really big deal for my mom at Christmas time. How do I address an envelope to this? They're not married, but they're living together. Okay, so this time, let's bring it up to now. And we think about Saturn in Aquarius for that kind of same scenario of the LBGT communities and how that is a focus now. Aquarius, Saturn in Aquarius, the Aquarius energies, also brought about communes and gardens, the communal garden. Everybody, helped in the garden, and then everybody got some of the food. Kind of reminded me of back in the 40s or whatever when they had their victory gardens. But during Saturn and Aquarius during the 60s, that commune, that co-sharing of spaces, co-sharing of food. And it's interesting because the co-sharing of spaces now, a lot of it is magnified on the elder community. There's a lot of communities now, that over 50, over 60 communities, where people are independent but living in communities. And that's come about, recently has come about, and now within the last few years, but that's part of the Capricorn structures. And now those structures will become even more of a gathering, more of a community kind of thing. It's interesting too, a lot of times with Aquarius, now Saturn moving into Aquarius, space becomes a real focus again, outer space, traveling to other places, etc., other planets. And all of this is very futuristic, very Aquarian, very much about Saturn and Aquarius. And of course, Saturn will be moving in July, March 21st through July 1st. And then Saturn will be in Aquarius December 17th of 2020, clear through March 7th of 2023, excuse me. And when you look at the ingress of that part of the chart when Saturn re-enters, look where Mars is. Mars, again, main player all year long. I mean, Mars moves into Aries, yes, and it'll hit Chiron. And it happens to be in the 7th house of relationships. And again, it can be in relationship with the community. It can be in all types of relationships coming down, Eris and Mars squaring Pluto. It's squaring the moon. It's squaring Jupiter. And it's still in the orb of squaring Saturn when it moves back in, and Palisthene, when it moves back in the second time in December. But Mars and Eris sitting together. So again, how we handle what's happening right now, the crisis, the taking time to go inward, taking time to be in community, taking time to get to know your neighbors and etc. Realizing this is an important thing that's happened here. And so when the crisis starts to subside, we still need to be in touch with the earth. We still need to communicate with humans. We still need to have family gatherings and play games and spend time together and neighborhoods, etc. Because with Mars sitting with Eris at the second time that Saturn moves into Aquarius, we want that energy to be a good energy. We want that energy to be like a pioneer energy of new things that we can develop, new structures we can develop. Because that kind of warrior energy and volatile energy of Mars and the chaotic, wild card, disruptive, jealous energy of Eris, we don't want those to get out of hand. And so we kind of have an important mission going on as Saturn re-enters Aquarius in December. And with that Mars, and of course it's all squaring again, the Pluto, Moon, Jupiter, Saturn, we have the ability to direct that right now, because we kind of have the ability to see that big picture, because we're getting a taste of Saturn in Aquarius now. We'll get a taste of it until it moves, on July 1st. And we're getting a taste of what it is that is going to be. So we have the opportunity and the time to focus on the high side of what that can be. Mars can be that ability to take action in a pioneering energy. So, and hitting Eris, and Eris has a higher side to it too. The higher side of that Eris energy, of being able to bring in a wild card energy, which can be a good energy, and a competition energy, and that can also be a higher good energy. There's a high side to this also. Does anyone have any questions? I also wanted to point out that the polarity point of Pluto during all of this is in Cancer at the equinox chart, and at the when Saturn moves into Aquarius again for the first time. The polarity point of Pluto is in Cancer. So the focus of this transformation of Pluto right now is, again, going inward, discovering, the earth again, rediscovering the earth again, discovering the fun and the closeness and the love of the family and the home and the neighborhood and the community and your friends. This rediscovering of this transformation out of the detachable Capricorn and the work, and the being caught up in all the technology and everything, and rediscovering, transforming into what also is important, which is family, which is community, which is the neighborhood, the tribe. And it doesn't have to be one or the other. Remember, all the oppositions, and of course the nodes being in opposition here, is the balancing of that, the balancing. And so learning to balance the community and the earth energy and the gathering of our families and our neighbors and people with the technology and the structures and et cetera. I'm bringing that into balance. With Pluto, the planet of transformation, and in this configuration that we're going through right now, this isn't easy work. We signed up to be here for it, but it isn't easy work. Saturn isn't easy, Capricorn isn't easy, but transformation is not easy. If it's an easy time period right now for you, then you're not doing the work in the area of your chart that this is affecting. Transformation is not easy. It's about work, and it's about transforming. And with Saturn involved, Saturn's about hard work. So, you know, even if it feels funny, if it's kind of a weird kind of funny feeling of being home and actually giving yourself permission, which can be hard for even myself at times, to relax, to read, to do whatever your creativity is, you know, knitting, putting a puzzle together, whatever, to relax, and you know, to go inward, which is meditation, which we need to be doing right now, meditating, manifesting peace. With Mercury in Pisces right now, peace. And you know, and being able to carry a conversation on with your family or your neighbors or whatever. We're kind of losing that a little bit. And you know, that detachability of Capricorn is good when it's needed, but we've gotten a little bit too detached and too reliant on our phones and etc. We need them, but we need to balance it.
Cathy?
Yeah.
Could you please comment on Chiron squaring the nodes?
Yes.
In terms of the South Node in Capricorn of the older people, and also in terms of families, the North Node Cancer, and also in terms of health, of course.
Yes, yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Chiron, and I know I had a note in here, but at any rate, Chiron representing health, and Chiron, health and healing, and a wound that we're trying to heal, etc. Squaring the nodes is very, very prominent. You know, whatever squares the nodes, we have to get over before we can get to that North Node. It's a health crisis that we're in right now. And we have to do some pioneer Aries kind of ways to handle this health crisis right now. And we need to do it for the whole community. We need to, part of that North Node in Cancer, that's healing energy, mother energy, Cancer energy. We need to start some new things and new ways of working with and healing the world, because this wound has to do with, you know, the whole world when we're looking at the world chart. And so we need to do some pioneering type of things. We need to take action in some ways of health and healing. And it is in the fifth house, which is creativity. So actually using creativity to help heal. Part of the healing would be like, you know, learning to get in family again and that kind of thing that we've been talking about. When you look at the square to the South Node, you know, recently, more recently, you know, part of the structures of Capricorn and part of the old stuff that we're trying to heal is getting out of that total detachment of Capricorn, where, you know, you kind of detach from all humanity. Basically, you're the CEO, and you don't, you know, you don't show emotion, and you detach from everything. Chiron is saying that we need to heal that, and we need to find a new way to do it. And this crisis is kind of putting us into that. How are we going to heal, everyone right now? How are we going to get in touch with that mother energy, that, the chicken soup energy, and the mother that takes care of the whole neighborhood, and etc. We got to pull out of that south node that's all about business, that's all about detaching, that's all about work, work, work. The old big CEO that works all the time and never goes home. And when he goes home, the kids are already fed and in bed. That's what we have to move away from. That's what we have to heal. We have to head towards that more community, that healing of the community. And, that high side of Aries is that pioneer. It's the ability to take action in a new direction, in a new way. And of course, with Saturn moving into Aquarius, that's also that future thinking part of that. And with the crisis we're in at the moment, it's concentrated on health, which is Chiron. Does that answer your question?
Yes, that was fantastic. But I do have another question.
Uh-huh.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
Fantastic. Could you please comment in terms of Juno in Libra, which seems
Yes.
to be the only, asteroid or planet on the other side of this bold chart? And
That's
it's
very true.
like a focal point. Could you please comment on that?
Yes, actually, that makes up a cardinal type square. I mean, it's not in the orb of the south node and the north node, but it is in the orb of Pallas Athene and Mars, etc., and Capricorn, with it being in Libra. Again, when I was talking about we have to learn balance, yes, we need CEOs and we need people to do business like that, but we need those people to also be able to go home and play with their kids and to take them out for a walk, etc. When you look at Juno, that's also forming basically a square through the cardinal energies, a grand cross. Libra's about balance, and Juno's about commitment. So Juno about commitment in the 11th house, which is Aquarius's house, the community, the tribe, and humanity. There's a real commitment of balance ruled by Venus with love in there and creativity. And like I said, it's actually squaring Pallas Athene and Mars and Jupiter. It's all in that orb. And so, I mean, it's in a square, and and of course, Eris, you can bring Eris in there too. But it's a real commitment with the cardinal energies of the balance. And with the theme that's going on with the nodes and with Pluto, Jupiter, Mars, and Saturn, etc., Pallas Athene, all in Capricorn, and Eris and Aries, and the nodes, they're not in the orb, but they're still in the Capricorn energy. That commitment of Juno in Libra is very, very important right now, because we have to get into that balance. That's what I believe the universe is very, very serious about right now, and is actually throwing everybody into that if they can connect with those energies of being in balance, a real commitment to the balance of work and the government and the CEOs of the Capricorn, but balancing it with the Cancer, and then balancing it also with like the Chiron being in the house of children and being, squaring those nodes. We need a commitment to the balance of those two. And that I believe is what this crisis really is about right now, because it's thrown us kind of into forced balance, but people are kind of enjoying it. It's something kind of new, and they're liking it. And that's part of that Juno and Libra, that commitment to the balance. And then of course it's ruled by Venus and which is love, etc. Did that kind of answer?
That was excellent. Thank you.
Okay.
I had a question.
Okay.
I heard that when you look at these transits, both sidereally and tropically, that the two stories kind of align, like, and tell a story together. And so I was just curious where this is sidereally, either now or before, and if you saw anything like in the stories. Like, I know Saturn won't enter Aquarius until 2022, I think, sidereally. I don't have the specifics, but I was just
okay.
Just kind of a general question around that, if you saw that, but anything between the sidereal and tropical.
I haven't really brought up the sidereal one chart to see how that would work, but from what you're saying, it sounds like the themes are kind of similar. Is that right?
Yeah, like they just add to each other. Not to say that they're similar, but it's kind of telling the story, but from two different sides. Like I just saw like a short blip on it, but it sparked my interest to look at it more.
Yes. I'm glad that they would tell the same story, because it's all astrological, or at least complement the stories, because the main themes, are there. Saturn moving into Aquarius now, or a little bit later, or the Aquarian type of energy. I believe that the energies that come down to Earth and affect us and affect the Earth, whether you're looking at the subtle one, or the tropical one, or you're looking at a Palladius, or you're looking at a whole sign, whatever chart you're looking at, those themes are going to come through, because the themes are up there. It's the energy, and the energy is hitting all of us, kind of regardless of what chart you look at. You're going to be activated where you need to be activated by the main energies that are being accented. Does that kind of make sense?
Yes, it does.
Okay. Any other questions?
Yes. What advice would you give anyone who has fears about surviving, and especially in terms of their money and finances, and loss of jobs and things like that?
Absolutely. And I'm sitting here in that same kind of situation at the moment. My son has been quarantined, and he lives across the street from me. And of course, he's younger, and so does he stock up? No. So my cousin and I are trying to leave things at his doorstep. So, and he's also quarantined from his job right now. And so, I mean, it's hitting home for everybody. And the finance part, well, I'm retired, so I have money invested. So what does that all mean? What I'm doing every day is, of course, working with my angels and guides. I'm making intentions for positivity around everything for everyone, and however that will look for them. I'm trying to put the stock market, etc., in a pink bubble or a white bubble of energy, the love energy of a pink bubble. I believe really at this particular moment, pulling on our intuition, pulling on our spirituality, however everyone, looks at it, is a big part of it. Staying out of the fear is a big part, and that's a hard part, because we have so many planets that trigger fear in the house of finances, etc. I keep making intentions that everyone will be okay. If they, for some people, it might be transforming them into a new and better job. That it's kind of like right now, we're in this cocoon of fear, but there will be a light at the end of that cocoon, just like a butterfly. This is how I'm kind of imagining things. Just focusing on the positivity and the moving forward of that. And there was one thing I wanted to just mention, and this is kind of in the chart of the United States. I just wanted to bring these transits up because I wasn't sure at the beginning, but the United States is at its Pluto return. And Saturn moving into Aquarius is going to hit the south node of the United States. And the Pluto of the United States is at 27 degrees and Saturn is sitting on it right now. And the one reason I just kind of brought that up just so I could see it as I was, investigating things was because the United States is kind of a big, one of the big powers that people look at, and it's in total crisis and chaos right now too. And that partly is because of the Pluto return. It's very interesting how that happens, and that also is in the second house of the chart of the United States, which right now at the equinox, it's all happening in the second house also. And remembering that this chart of the equinox is the backdrop for the whole year, the astrological year. So the ability of Mercury in Pisces in the third house of communication in Pisces, which is our higher spiritual and our angels and guides and the manifesting and making intentions, is very strong. Neptune is also, again, in Pisces. They're in the fourth house along with the sun of the equinox. The best way to stay out of fear is just every time it kind of starts to take you over, you just have to stop it and just kind of say, no, this is happening for a reason. It's going to be a higher energy, and I'm intending that everything, those intentions, the manifestations, the ability to shelter everything basically in the high energies is the best way to stay out of fear. That good will come from this. We don't have to see it right now, because we're in that kind of cocoon. But knowing that as these planets move on, especially as they move on, Saturn into Aquarius, and then in December, Saturn goes back in Aquarius. Jupiter also goes into Aquarius. It'll be more about the community, more about the future, etc. There's a high end to all of this. We just can't see it all right now. We have to stay out of the fear. Does that make sense?
Yes. Also,
Okay.
Cathy, this chart is a bowl, and a bowl,
Yes.
bowl shape. It's is said to hold things and something to offer, something to share. What is it that we have to share? And also with Eris in the center of the bowl here, with Chiron right at that center, what can we do? What action can we take?
Well, the fact that the Chiron and Eris are in the fifth house, I mean, that is the house of creativity. It's kind of like, not only are we kind of forced at home right now, but looking at our inner child, doing some imaginative kind of things, I want to say, like crafts or whatever, but I mean, just it's that creativity, that child within, that child kind of energy that helps keep us out of the fear. Eris is actually, opposed to Juno there in Libra, which again is ruled by Venus, and that's kind of like in the handle of the bowl, that commitment to balance through creativity, through love, and that healing of that wound. That's part of how we can heal that Chiron wound. It's really, the staying out of the fear of it comes through the childlike innocence, basically, of that fifth house, and the creativity with that commitment to balance and that commitment to love, bringing things back into balance. Right now, we're on the heavy side of Capricorn, CEO, detachment, work, etc. We got to bring in that balance of family and take care of the earth and that kind of love, which is part of the Juno and Libra ruled by Venus, and then you have, of course, the house of creativity, where Eris and Chiron are sitting. I believe that's how the handle, the out part of the bull. That's how I look at it anyway. Does that make sense?
Total sense.
Okay.
And I do have another comment or a question.
All right.
I'm noticing the humorous side of this crisis. On Facebook, there are people, lots of posts that, are posting jokes and, just having
yeah.
fun, and humans laughing at themselves.
Yes.
Any comment on that?
Yes, that's part of the, well, okay, that's part of trying to look at the positive side. People are starting to kind of want to get out of the crisis thing, and so they're laughing and they're having fun, which is part of the 5th house, where Chiron is, and Eris. And yeah, it's something we haven't seen a whole lot before. And just like we haven't seen a lot of the comments about, wow, I played some games with my kids tonight and it was fun. I saw that posted on Facebook, and I'm like, it's amazing what we've been missing. And part of it's that humor and that laughing, and actually Jupiter, rules a lot of the kind of fun and the laughing and the joyful energy, that's sitting right in the middle of Mars and Pluto. So yeah, that's part of that healing. That's part of that, heading to that north node. Part of the balance is the people that are using humor and laughing at themselves now, etc. The seriousness, getting away from that seriousness of the Capricorn that's overboard right now.
That's wonderful. Thank you, Cathy.
Uh-huh. Anything else? So as I'm looking at a lot of these charts that are very similar, with the equinox and Saturn moving into Aquarius, and the re-entering of Saturn in Aquarius. Again, Mars is a big trigger. Balance is a big trigger. Those two things, and actually the chart of Saturn re-entering, like I said, re-entering Aquarius in December 17th, and it's going to be sitting right with Mars, squaring Pluto. It made me kind of gasp, because I thought, oh my God, that can be another crisis or another, that type of energy of the crisis, and that kind of war kind of argumentative kind of energies. And it really made me think of the fact that we really have to pay attention to what's happening now astrologically. And we need to heal that, work on that healing of that Chiron wound, work on the balance. When Saturn re-enters Aquarius, the sun will be in Sagittarius, which is a lighter energy. Of course, the south node will be in Sagittarius, and Mercury right there. That's a lighter energy, and but it's still about communication, and it's about pulling out of some of the Sagittarius is like our master teachers and our master spiritual teachers and the published authors and higher learning and higher knowledge. But also North Node in Gemini, it's about embodying the youthful energy. and not so much of the serious energy, and embodying, you know, the what I want to say, that the childlike innocence of communication, being able to communicate within the families and the neighborhoods, etc., that we're learning now. When the nodes switch, if there's still an emphasis on learning communication and kind of the youthful part of it and the fun part. Sagittarius is a wonderful energy, but when you're looking on the grayer side of Sagittarius, the grayer side is like the preacher that starts believing his own preaching. Somebody, I use for those of you that remember, I use the terminology of Jim Jones. Jim Jones was somebody that was spiritual and trying to share it. And then he got a little bit of ego mixed in there. And then suddenly he started believing his own preaching. Then he started believing that he was God. And he had this ability to magnetize and draw people to him and follow him, to the point where they went to an island and he poisoned the Kool-Aid basically, and everybody committed suicide. That is a gray side of Sag. That's kind of a seriousness where you get under somebody's spell, or somebody starts believing their own preaching, and then they start preaching things that aren't true, etc. That's what that South Node is about there in the house of communication, in Sag, in Gemini's house, is the kind of like the false prophets, and those that, you know, suddenly become, well, kind of like Jim Jones. Another example would be like the main spiritual leader in England that runs the church and has a foot in the government. I'm not saying that he's bad, whoever that is now, but that could be, you know, a grayer side of that Sag too. And coming out in that Gemini in a more youthful way, in a more fun way, in a more sharing knowledge type of way is kind of how I see that. As Saturn enters Aquarius for the second time. Yeah. And again, one of the meetings of the seventh house where Mars and Eris is sitting is the house of open enemies. And so being with people, if you're looking at the world chart, being with leaders that are really enemies, but you have to be friendly to them and talk to them, etc. That also could be intense time for that type of relationship. And with all the government, the Pluto, the Moon, the Jupiter, and then Saturn all being in the orb there in Capricorn, squaring all that. I mean, it could be another volatile time, and it could be with our enemies that we're trying to be nice to. So really focusing on the North Node now, you know, in the chart of the spring equinox, and the healing with Chiron, squaring it, focusing on the balance of the community, the balance of our families, the balance of the nurturing of the earth and the nurturing of humanity and of everyone in the whole world is extremely important right now, as the universe is trying to let us see, so that we can bring that balance in at a time when Saturn re-enters Capricorn, re-enters Aquarius, excuse me, and that chart is kind of a chart that we want to make sure that that it doesn't become real volatile. And so again, focusing on what the equinox chart is saying right now is extremely important. So I'm trying to read some of my notes here. Okay, any more questions? I do want to mention something about the equinoxes and the solstices, I mean, together, both of them, but the spring equinox, that actually is um, a portal to the universe. All of the equinoxes, solstices, they open up a portal to the universe. And so you get downloads and activations from the universe and galactically, etc. If in your DNA you have some galactic connections, they also can get activated at that time. That portal to the universe is extremely important at these equinoxes and solstices. It's a great time to meditate during the actual openings of the equinox, and the actual opening is at 10:50 p.m. Eastern time. And so I usually go into a meditation a little before that, a little after that. I actually have a conference call tonight at that time, because it's a little late on a work night, although a lot of people aren't working. But if it's during a better time period, I usually try to have an outdoor or an indoor ceremony during that time to go into meditation with a group, which is very much what this chart is saying, that again, that community thing, a community phone call, a community gathering at that time, and everyone going into meditation for about 7 minutes during the opening, or 10 minutes during the opening of that portal. Perfect time to manifest, a perfect time to put out there what we want to what we want to happen at this equinox, what we want to focus on. You know, this time the balancing and bringing in community, bringing in nature, the healing of all of that. That's what we want the energies to really be focused on at the time of this chart, at the actual time of the equinox, the portal, and we'll get activations during that time. I always call all of our guidance in at that time, because everyone individually will get their own activations, but also the humanity, everyone throughout the world will also get those downloads at that time. So very, very important about the actual opening of the portals during the equinoxes. And it's like the universe gives us a gift at that time, and we're able to connect with everyone throughout the galaxy. And that's very, very important. And so especially during what's going on right now with this crisis, very important, a very important time to meditate and to manifest. Manifesting being very important, so that the tribe and our community and also our own lives can receive this energy. And right now during this crisis, we definitely need it, and we definitely need to manifest that people stay out of the fear, that they learn how to not let the fear overtake them, and being able to see the big picture of, there's good at the end of this, and we're just not quite sure what that looks like yet. So it's a very powerful time. It's very it's kind of, if you can see the big picture and know that we're heading into a time period that's going to be a little different than we are now, but it's going to be more connected to family, more connected to humanity, more connected to community, and more connected to the earth, that actually looks kind of good. And I believe that's what the universe is saying right now. And it's to a point where the crisis had to form, the virus had to form for everything to be put aside, and the world starting to work together because of this virus. It's an amazing time. Any questions? Yeah.
Not from me. Any, Sue, Della? Okay, Cathy, that brings us to the end of your meeting. And
Oh, okay.
really great, and thank you for all the advice to keep positive and to share and care for each other. Just beautiful.
Yes.
And unmuting, could you all please thank Cathy Lindsey?
Thank you.
Thank you,
Happy,
Cathy.
You're welcome. Happy Equinox, everyone.
Same to you. That was very nice.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Cathy.
Thank you.